Good morning, friends, foes, and sweethearts. This Doug here. Got up before dark this morning. Old dog walked into the bedroom and didn't make a sound hardly, but he woke me up anyhow. So I got up and let him out. Have to let him out before daybreak every morning, because if I don't, the dog catcher will catch him. Carry him off, I'll have to go rescue. Pay his fine. So I was waiting for him to come back in, and I checked my email. Well, I got an email from an old friend that I met in Deltaville, Virginia. Him and 3 or 4 other guys sailed a big old barkentine over here from England. They had a pretty young lady on board. Had set a bathtub up in the on deck, and she went out and put on a show taking a bath for the boys every day. Anyway, we were reminiscing about old times. He was a commando in the British military in World War II. I think Frank is about 96 or 7 years old. Anyway, and we talked back and forth. And he said something that just, man, I'll tell you what, it really made me think. He said the happiest times in Britain was in World War II. Everybody was fighting for a cause. Everybody was manufacturing airplanes and ships and bullets and torpedoes and bombs and everything they needed to fight their enemy. He said, and I think the United States was the same way. He said the music was lively. The people were busy. They were doing meaningful work. They were making a good living. There wasn't nothing to buy because the military was taking up all the manufacturing. So he was making good money, couldn't buy anything with the money. Well, you know, he says that's the problem with England today. Lots of cheap junk from China to buy and no decent jobs to earn your own respect. I think that's what's wrong with America today. That's why we're split. And the government doesn't have a solution to the problem. Although maybe Trump might be moving in that direction, I hope. To see to it that we have meaningful work rather than a bunch of cheap junk from China to buy with our dollars. Things that we can take pride in. This is nothing more glorious than building a bomber or building a battleship. Unless it is to command a thing. That would be something, wouldn't it? But anyway, I feel bad for Americans, and I feel bad for the Brits. Germany lost World War II and has won the economic war. They're now running Europe. They won Europe by economic means. They did with economics what they couldn't do with bombs and bullets. And the Brits know it. And that's why this Brexit thing means so much to the Brits. And their own government is still trying to figure out how to make them happy with trinkets from Japan and Germany and wherever. I'm going to miss my old friend. He's sick, and that's what he emailed me to tell me, that he's sick, and he'll see me somewhere in the universe someday. I just thought I'd pass this along because I think there's a huge lesson in this. It's the meaningful work that matters to you. It's the feeding your children, providing them with warm clothing in the wintertime and a roof over their head on rainy days, and buying your wife the things that she needs to work around the house, and the things that she could wear to go to the ladies' meeting, to feel pride in it. When you can do all of those things, you are a man. When you can do all those things, there's no doubt about it, you can't help but throw your chest out and feel pride in who you are and what you've done. Our government pays people not to work for whatever reason. I really don't understand that, but that's what our government does. Pays people not to work, as if they didn't pay them, their children would starve. Do you think for 1 minute that you would let your children starve if you didn't have a welfare check? No, you wouldn't do that. You'd get your ass out and you'd go find a job and you'd feed your children, and you would feel so much better for it than you do just living off a check from the government. Meaningless. Doesn't mean anything. It feeds your children, but you could do that yourself. So If that's your life, man, I'm telling you, I feel sorry for you because you have no bragging rights at all. Maybe the cards are stacked against you and maybe it's hard for you to do better. But you know, if it was me and there was no place for me to work in the United States, damn if I wouldn't go to China and get a job. And I'd feed my family. Well, I've told this before. I'm going to tell it again because it's true. Black Americans were coming up to find work in the northern cities. About 1940 or 41, we're coming from Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia, all over the South, deep South, looking for work. They had been raising cotton and tobacco and one thing or another, but there was good jobs in Baltimore, Washington, Philadelphia, New York, all across Pennsylvania. And they came north looking for those jobs. Well, I remember in Baltimore that a certain politician was running for governor and got the job because he told Baltimoreans, don't let the blacks come up here and take these jobs because they'll work for nothing and they'll ruin these good jobs. They don't know how to do anything but pick cotton. Well, we'll give them a roof over their head and we'll feed them. And that'll be cheaper than letting them take your job. And that got him elected. A couple years later, there was a national election. The same thing carried on in the national election. That's the worst thing that was ever done to black people. Slavery was nothing compared to that. At least in slavery, the slaves had, at least in slavery, they had the pride of having worked all day. And in that way, they fed their families. They didn't draw a paycheck, but that it provided sustenance for the family. But now they're not supplying now. So anyway, before I would do that, I'd go out and peck poop with the chickens to feed my family, if that's what it took. I'll be damned if I'd let some politician in Washington, D.C. take my pride away from me in taking care of my family. I wouldn't do that. The reason they're doing that, you know, is so that you won't have the backbone to fight back when they take your pride away from you. The socialists, all they want, your power taken away from you and absorbed by them. Right here is where some Democrat stands up and yells, there's more white people on welfare than black people. And then I have to say, well, you Democrats, you people who fought so hard for slavery, before and after the Civil War, have done everything you could to get white people on welfare and convince them that they're incapable of earning a living so that you could get their votes. Easiest thing in the world to tell somebody, hey, if you elect anybody else, you're not going to get welfare anymore. You're going to starve to death. Your children are going to starve. So they blackmailed them, and they blackmailed the black people. The proof that welfare is evil is that African Americans have been on welfare for at least 4 generations now. So what was welfare a solution to? It was a solution to nothing. It was a solution to a problem that didn't exist. So now we have African American men sitting on the corner selling the next door neighbor's daughter or selling drugs or whatever because the government's given their wives the money to raise their children, and the men have absolutely no place on this earth of any value. They've taken the man's dignity and made him a slave. Now maybe you think I'm being too hard on the Democrats. Well, look what they did to the President of the United States, a duly elected president. They tried to turn him into a criminal without any proof, only hearsay. It's all a part of socialism. I know something about socialism. I've been there and done that. I know what I'm talking about. Okay, I'll go on off from here and let you chew on this for a minute if that's what you want to do. And bye-bye. I'll talk to you another day, everybody.